Stardew Valley and Coral Island are both cozy farming games, but their characters couldn't look more different. Stardew shows off Eric Baroni's charming pixel art, while Coral Island gives its characters a modern, Disney-like look thanks to character designer David Loggia. Today, I'm taking 6 of Stardew Valley's Bachelors and redesigning them as if they took a trip to Coral Island. Let's start with Alex. In Stardew Valley, he's a town athlete. Most of his personality revolves around sports, working out, and dreaming of becoming a professional gridball player, whatever that is. I designed Alex as the kind of guy who spends his mornings training on the beach. I wanted to keep that athletic energy, but try to push it a bit further. Since Coral Island characters tend to have more fashion-forward outfits, I gave him a more modern, athletic fit, cleaner styling, and a slightly more mature look. But I tried to keep his confident, almost cocky energy. He's one of the youngest of the bunch, which is part of why I wanted to let a bit of that boyish arrogance stay front and center. Looking back through his development history, Alex barely changed at all from his earliest design. Sure, his changes include his hairstyle, hair color, skin tone, and eye color, but the vibes were pretty much the same throughout. His eyes are green in both his sprite and final portrait, but they were brown in a lot of beta art. Small detail, but it's the kind of thing that can change a character's whole vibe, so I went with the final, more consistent green for the redesign. I felt like Alex was a really great, low-stakes character to start this challenge with, and I'm really happy with how he turned out. Next up is Sam. Sam already felt surprisingly close to a Coral Island character. He's energetic, creative, and spends most of his time skating and playing music. For his redesign, I leaned into the coastal side of that, so his outfit became more relaxed and colorful, and I really wanted him to feel carefree and approachable while hinting at that little rebellious streak that he has through some of his piercings. He's also one of the youngest bachelors in the game, so I kept his proportions and styling on the softer, more boyish end, compared to someone like Shane or Elliot. Sam's development reveals that he had green eyes at some point, a trait that remains in his overworld sprite, but in his official portrait, they're usually grey, sometimes even blue depending on the lighting. And his beta art bounced between a dark blue and a green before that. 3 different sources, 3 different answers. For the redesign, I lean towards a blue-grey that splits the difference. This one felt the most Sam, without fully committing to any one version. I'm super pleased with this one. I feel like it captured his relaxed vibe really well, and he feels like he'd be right at home in Coral Island. Next up we have Sebastian. Sebastian is one of Stardew's most recognizable characters, and I knew I wanted to preserve his alternative aesthetic. I drew some inspiration from Sebastian from Black Butler, and I give him freckles since I personally subscribe to the theory that Sebastian is a natural ginger like his mom. I also gave him a leather jacket to lean into that motorcycle interest of his, and to create a version of Sebastian that feels a little bit more mature and a little more mysterious. He's technically grouped together with the younger bachelors alongside Alex and Sam, but his whole persona plays older to me. Sebastian is also very stable in terms of color continuity. His sprite and portrait both land on that dark purple eye color that reads as almost black. Well, at least until he starts walking or turns sideways. Then his eyes turn green like most of the town, and 2 different shades of green at that. No, seriously, why does everyone in this town have red hair or green eyes? Anyway, his beta art was all over the place too. Dark purple, brown, black, and even dark green eyes at different points, before the final moody, almost black look was locked in. I kept that final version since it's become such a core part of his identity, and changing it would feel wrong. Since he's in all black, I think he reads as regular Sebastian even with my additions. I kinda wish I pushed this one a little bit further, but on the right side, I think he'd get along beautifully with Lily, another programmer in Coral Island. Okay, next is Harvey. This is one of Stardew Valley's sweetest characters. He's an awkward doctor that ConcernApe even describes as kind-hearted and respected. Although, I've heard most people say that visually, he's fairly understated. Harvey's one of the older bachelors, so I aged the design up, giving him a more grown, settled look, with a more confident presence while trying to keep his awkward charm. I tried to upgrade his wardrobe, but honestly I liked his whole vibe. I just got rid of the coat and gave him a vest instead. I also thought it would be cute to give his tie a little airplane pattern. That's the kind of adorable way that I think he'd showcase his interests. His eyes are objectively grey on his sprite, but I believe this is because of his glasses. So if we take that into consideration, you would think that Harvey is the one exception to the inconsistent eye color pattern that I kept running into. His sprite, portrait, and beta art all agree. Brown eyes, no debate, no changes. Out of 6 bachelors, he's the only one with a completely clean paper trail. Or, well, at least he would be, if it weren't for his flustered and blushing sprites which both feature green eyes. ConcernApe, please. I too am concerned. Anyway, in his development, it seems like the mustache was the real debate with this character, but I decided to keep the stash, obviously. It's basically his whole brand at this point. And okay, I don't know about you, but I'm suddenly interested in going to the doctors again. I'm super pleased with how he turned out, and I especially think that the grey hairs were a great addition to this character. Okay, up next we have Elliot. Honestly, Elliot already looks like he belongs in Coral Island. The long red hair, the dramatic personality, the oceanfront cabin for crying out loud. This guy was just begging to get sent to Coral Island. Elliot is another one of the older bachelors, and it really shows. He just carries himself with more maturity than the younger three. For my redesign, I leaned into the novelist side of his character and gave him a look that feels somewhere between an author, an artist, and a Disney prince. I also decided to relax him and remove the coat. I know he's dramatic, but he'd be suffocating wearing that and living on the beach. So instead, I gave him an open collar linen shirt, and I also brought back the little hoop earrings from earlier in his development. Elliot went through a noticeable redesign before launch. He started out looking much younger and much more delicate in his beta portraits, before Concern Dave settled on the older, more rugged version we got in the final game. As far as color inconsistencies go, Elliot's sprite and final portrait both have green eyes. Most of his early portraits are green too, but at least one beta design gives him a grayish blue instead. It's a minor outlier, but it's interesting that it's there at all given how settled his design looks by launch. I really like how he turned out, it just feels right to me. Especially the open shirt with the long hair, it feels very telenovela, and I can really see him in a beachside soap opera. And finally, we have Shane. Shane is interesting since he wasn't even originally designed to be a bachelor. He started as a regular townsperson, and it was only after fans voted for him that he was added as a marriage candidate in a post-launch update alongside Emily. I think this makes sense as his story and design always felt different to me from the other bachelors. Shane was probably the hardest redesign because so much of his struggles come from his character rather than his appearance. I didn't want to erase the Shane that players are so divided on, but I also wanted him to feel at home in Coral Island's brighter world. I focused on making him look hardworking, someone who spent years taking care of animals and working long days, but who's slowly finding his footing again. Shane also rounds out the older trio alongside Harvey and Elliot, so I aged his design up, a little older than we see him in Stardew Valley. I also cleaned him up just a little, enough to show progress in character growth. I always thought it was weird that when you marry him, his room is just a hot mess. It kind of implies to me that he never really got himself together, and I don't know, that's just kind of sad. In terms of design, Shane's got some messy continuity once you start comparing sources. His sprite has black eyes, but his official portrait gives him green, and his beta art couldn't decide either, mixing black and green depending on the version. His hair also has the same problem, brown in his beta designs versus the purple we know him by today. Some people even think it's black. It's pretty fitting honestly for a character whose whole arc is about figuring himself out, and don't even get me started on the polo versus jersey debate. For my design, I gave him a Henley shirt, no jersey or polo to debate over. Also, I darkened his color palette a little, as an homage to his punk persona, and I decided that his hair is dark brown with some gray sprinkled in. I hope I managed to capture Shane in a way that won't erase the Shane that we got to know in Stardew Valley. And with that, all 6 Stardew Bachelors have officially settled into Coral Island. What do you think? I would love to see these characters visit the island as tourists, and who knows, maybe one day we'll get to see it. Let me know in the comments which redesign was your favorite, and if you'd like to see me tackle the Bachelorettes next. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, don't forget to like, subscribe, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!